What is going on, everyone? It's Johnny here with Trader X. I hope you guys are all having a beautiful day today. And as Zach from the comments predicted yesterday, I did have a huge green day, right? So a whopping $4.07 on the day. So these were all the stocks I traded, and then this was how much I was up or down on them. And so, all jokes aside, I did want to break down three of the momentum stocks I took today, and then how I was able to make $32 on trading the Nasdaq future ETFs, right? So to get on into it, the first stock I wanted to take a look at was ticker symbol ZTEK. And the reason why I really like this one, well, I lost some money on this one, right? $15 on the day I was down, but I still really like the setup. And the reason why I did was in the morning when I scanned, as you guys can see, it still is one of the top gappers, and that's typically what I look for in my setup. And so this one in specific, as you guys can see, it's a brand new stock, right? On the bigger time frames, this thing came out like yesterday, I believe. So it was able to spike up from lows of 258, a high of 1498, and then it flushed back down. And that's typically the setup I like to see, especially on a new stock, because if the momentum's there, it could ultimately spike back up to its previous resistance levels and even go surpass it and go higher, right? So in the morning, that's why I decided to take two trades on this today, even though they were both losers. Unfortunately, the momentum just wasn't there today, but if it was able to catch the momentum, it could have ultimately hit highs close to $15, and the risk to reward was absolutely worth it in my opinion, right? This thing could have hit over 300% on the day if everything went according to plan. Unfortunately, it didn't, so but it's okay. You gotta cut it and move on somewhere, right? So other than that, I did want to take a look at ticker symbol LBPS. And this one actually was a trade that went really green for me and then ultimately ended up not making me that much money. So I was up a total of $8 on this, and I got into this one with $150, right? So the return isn't too bad compared to like an average trade. But other than that, since I was trading with a small dollar amount, I obviously didn't make the most money. But the reason why I saw value in it was, as you guys can see, it was similar to the last stock I just explained, where it had a big gap up and then it ultimately pulled back, right? And then when I scanned this morning, it popped up. It's still up here. It was one of the top gappers. I found that attractive. And I wanted to take a potential play down here for it to potentially gap all the way back up to its previous resistance levels. But then, so as you guys can see, I bought in right around these levels, 682, and it ultimately ended up pushing up from where I was in 27%, right? So at that point, I obviously could have locked that in, but I ultimately thought it was going to run more on the day. So ultimately my fault on that one, and ultimately fell below the middle and bottom VWAP. Well, not bottom VWAP yet, but EMA line, and so I did have to cut this one for a small profit. So unfortunately that one didn't go according to plan. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was ticker symbol REVB. And so this one, as you can see, I was not able to ride any of this movement up. So it pushed up over 20%, a market open before it had a nice pullback, and then another 52%, right? So that's absolutely crazy. Congrats to anyone who got to take part of that. But I decided to get back in after this huge pullback in anticipation that it would continue to run, but it ultimately didn't. It hit a resistance and ultimately it ended up getting, I got flushed out, right, and stopped out. So I lost on this one $12, not the end of the world, but I gotta, in the future, be real with myself and realize that this thing pushed up, like 60-70% before it pulled back. So I definitely wasn't surprised that this one didn't end up going, right? Because it already had these two huge pushes before the momentum started to die out. So that's completely my fault. And then the last thing I wanted to take a look at was the Nasdaq. So this thing was all over the place for me today. It's the reason why I had so many orders. And with this one, it actually, I was red about $50-60 on the day. As this thing was pushing up, I had a small little position in SQs, right? So I would say it was probably right around these levels. I got into SQs and it fell, and then ultimately ended up finding a support and going, right? So I ended up losing some money on this, And what I found to be attractive was I decided to cut my loss on SQs and wait for the NASDAQ to become a little more overextended, right? So what I typically saw was when I took a step back on the 5-day, 5-minute chart, this thing typically tends to run up to the top VWAP and it struggles to break above it, right? So as you guys can see here, previously it's hit the top VWAP and fallen to the bottom VWAP, bounced, and then hit the top VWAP again, and then again gets rejected. And I saw that again right over here in these levels. And so as this thing broke above this resistance level, it used this resistance level as a new support level down here, right? So as this thing pushed up, became overextended, and then ultimately ended up pulling back, it found another support right around the old resistance level. And as it pushed on back up to this new resistance level here, that's where I found it to be a little more on the overbought side, right? So I decided to take an SQ play, and I did so lightly. I only was in with about $500, and as it began to sell off, I added another 500, and then I believe I was able to secure my trade over here, and then I took part in some of this fall too. So I went from being down 40 to 50 to finishing up on SQs, as you can see here, $32, right? So that put me up $4 on the day. And so yeah, that's pretty much my recap for the day. I do want to let you guys know that the NASDAQ is a little more overextended right now. So if we do see a pullback the next few days, let's not be surprised by it, right? Other than that, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. And drop a like if you haven't already, and subscribe if you haven't. Share it with any one of your trader friends that you think would find this useful. And yep, guys, it's been another day trading recap. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.